I never imagined I'd fall in love with the owner after pretending to be his maid. My heart races just thinking about it. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The kitchen smelled of burnt toast and spilled secrets. I stood there trembling, the weight of lies heavy in my chest. I had entered that lavish mansion as an impostor, wearing the frayed apron of a maid. It was a desperate act, born from the ashes of my broken life. My mother had just lost her job, and I was drowning in bills and despair. I thought I'd escape the misery, just for a while. But fate had other plans. The owner, Max, was an enigma wrapped in fine suits and a smile that could light up the darkest hallways. Eyes as deep as the ocean, full of warmth and mystery. At first, he didn't notice me. Just another shadow in his home. I would dust the furniture, scrub the floors, but part of me felt like I was cleaning the past, scouring away the remnants of who I once was. Then, one evening, as the sun dipped low, casting golden hues in the kitchen, I heard laughter. It was a sound like music, echoing in my heart. I peeked around the corner. There he was, laughing with friends, his head thrown back in joy. The sight was intoxicating. I could almost taste the thrill of his happiness. My heart ached with longing. But I was nothing. Just a maid with dirty hands and rent to pay. I wanted to reach out, to taste a slice of that laughter, but the weight of the lie threatened to suffocate me. Days turned to weeks. I learned the sounds of his world, the creaking of the floorboards when he paced, the soft clinking of wine glasses, and the shadows that danced around him like lost souls seeking comfort. I watched him from a distance, my pulse quickening with every stolen glance. But there was a storm brewing. One night, I found an envelope tucked beneath the stacks of laundry. The name on it sent chills down my spine. Estate sale. My heart dropped. This mansion, this life, all of it could vanish. As I tucked the envelope away, Max's laughter rang out once more. A part of me wanted to scream for him, to tell him the truth, to save what little I had come to love. But just then, a knock at the door shattered my thoughts. My heart raced with fear. What if they found out? What if he found out? I stood frozen, clenching the envelope tightly in my hands. The tension in the air thickened, and I felt the walls closing in. Could I confess my secret? Or would it all crumble, leaving me alone in the dark? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. My heart raced as the knock echoed through the grand hall, splintering the fragile cocoon I had built around myself. I could feel the envelope's sharp edges digging into my palm, a reminder of the impending collapse. What would I say if Max opened that door? Would he see through the facade I had created? Would he toss me out into the cold night? Or worse, would he understand the desperation that had driven me to this life of deceit? I glanced around, the lavish decor of the mansion suddenly feeling like a prison rather than a sanctuary. The high ceilings loomed over me, each gilded corner taunting my sense of worth. "I'm just a maid," I whispered to myself, but the words felt heavier than stone. I took a shaky breath, ready to slip away into the shadows until my phone buzzed against the counter to pen an unexpected message. "Can't stop thinking about you." The text was from Mia, my only friend, a light in my otherwise dim world. A glimmer of hope danced in my chest. In the midst of my turmoil, she was a reminder that kindness still existed. But I couldn't afford to be distracted. Not now. I shoved my phone away and focused on the door. This time, the knock was more insistent. My legs felt rooted to the floor, paralyzed by fear. Finally, I edged toward the door, and as I did, another knock landed softly, almost delicately, like a hesitant promise. Maybe it was just someone delivering a package or, heaven forbid, a charity worker who would ask me about my life choices. Glimpsing through the peephole, I was startled to find not a stranger, but a familiar face from my past. The girl who had once shared dreams of a future we imagined beyond our small town. She was a ray of sunshine, and moments like this felt like rays of warmth were shining through the cracks in my ice fortress. I opened the door, my heart pounding as I looked into her bright, expectant eyes. But just as quickly as relief washed over me, dread followed. What was she doing here? How could I possibly explain my life without shattering my carefully constructed illusion? "Hey," she greeted, her smile wide, but her eyes glinting with worry. "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by. Mind if I come in?" I hesitated, but the warmth in her voice disarmed me. "Sure. Just try to be quiet," I stammered, glancing nervously toward the living room where Max often retreated after late-night gatherings. Once inside, she scanned the opulence around her, a facade that felt heavy on my conscience. "You're living it up." Her laughter was soothing, but I could hear the disbelief lacing her amusement. "I've got to know, how did you end up here? Are you really a maid?" A lump formed in my throat. To be so close to revealing the truth, yet feeling shackled by it, was torturous. "It's complicated," I managed, feeling the weight of my unconfessed lies pressing down on me. What if she said something to Max? What if the moment I so desperately tried to protect slipped through my fingers? "Complicated how?" she urged, her smile dimming. "You've got to tell me. You seem different. Like you're hiding something." I sighed deeply, feeling the walls close in once more. "I can't explain. Not now. Not here." My heart ached with the truth I couldn't share. Mia stepped closer, a fierce determination in her eyes. "What if I can help? You look like you need something I need to confide in." She reached for my hand, and for the first time since the lie began, I felt a flicker of hope. But just as I began to speak, the front door swung open, and in walked Max, laughter trailing behind him like a warm breeze. My stomach knotted as I scrambled to mask my turmoil. He spotted us immediately, the laughter fading from his lips as he parsed the scene before him. "Who is this?" he asked, his voice low and curious, yet threaded with an edge I had never heard before. My pulse quickened as I stood frozen, fully aware that my carefully cultivated world hung in a delicate balance. "Just an old friend," I blurted out, the words spilling from my mouth like marbles scattering on a tiled floor, desperate and uncoordinated. The tension in the room shifted palpably as Max's eyes zeroed in on me, searching for the truth I could no longer hide. The way he looked at me felt like a jigsaw puzzle, with pieces slowly connecting, but leaving a void that I wasn't ready to fill. Just before he could respond, I felt something brush against my leg, a small, furry shape. I gasped as I looked down. A puppy had wandered in, bright-eyed and full of energy, as it tripped over its own paws in its excitement. It barreled toward Max, who instinctively dropped to his knees, letting a smile break over his serious demeanor. "Oh, where did you come from?" His voice, now laced with warmth, served as a stark reminder of the man I had fallen for, the man I desperately wanted to protect from my dark truth. But as he petted the puppy, I felt a sudden urgency resolve inside me, a realization that my world, built on lies, was teetering on the edge of collapse. The urgency to tell him everything surged. Would this be the moment I poured out the truth, or would I let another opportunity slip through my fingers? Glancing at Mia, I saw her wide eyes filled with a mix of anxiety and understanding. Would this cute interruption distract everyone from the inevitable confrontation? Or would it be the catalyst for a future I needed to confront? "Max," I began, my heart racing as I readied myself for the plunge, "there's something I need to tell you." The air in the room shifted drastically as I tried to summon the words, that had been trapped within me for far too long. My breath came in uneven bursts, and I could feel the puppy's warmth against my leg, a stark contrast to the chill of fear that curled around my heart. "Max, there's something I need to tell you," I repeated, but his focus remained on the playful pup. Just when I thought I had him, this unpredictable creature had stolen his attention completely. The small abyss of uncertainty widened in my gut, feeding my anxiety. Mia's eyes darted between me and Max, an all-knowing glimmer lingering in their depths. I caught her biting her lip, a silent urge to encourage me, but how could I disturb this moment of unexpected joy? Max was kneeling, his serious demeanor evaporating with each tail wag of the newfound companion. It was maddening. I felt like I was being torn between two worlds, the one I had built and the one I wanted so desperately to escape to. "Can we keep him?" Max asked, excitement creeping into his voice as he scratched behind the puppy's ears. The creature leaned against him, reveling in affection. "He's adorable. He has to belong to someone, right?" I managed to say, my voice barely lifting above a whisper, each word an anchor reminding me of my own hidden burdens. As easy as it had been for him to reach for that stray heart on four paws, how could I ask him to consider the truth I carried in an entire life of secrets that could splinter the facade of our fragile good fortune? "Maybe he's lost." "I bet he's a runaway," Mia chimed in, her tone cheerful, attempting to lighten the sudden heaviness that loomed over me. But her words nudged me towards an uncomfortable revelation. Wasn't that what I was? A runaway from my own truth? I shook my head to clear my thoughts, but they spiraled faster. "Max, the thing is," I began again, this time forcing my heart to pierce through the veil of pleasantries. But again, he glanced up, his face brightened with delight, completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath my composure. Just then, the puppy yipped, its innocence somehow punctuating the weight of the moment, and in a flash, a wild idea sparked within me. Perhaps I could weave a narrative, a temporary mask hiding the deeper truths of my life as his maid. What if I kept the puppy's arrival a diversion long enough to shield my secrets? But as that thought lingered, I saw a flicker of disappointment cross Max's face. Laughter always seemed to vanish when I hesitated. "You know, I've never had a pet before," he said, his brow knitting in thought. "Maybe if we find out who he belongs to, we could, I don't know, adopt him. My first real adult responsibility." That sounds nice," I replied, my voice trembling as I sought to return to the genuine warmth igniting his expression. Yet, another part of me screamed in resistance, urging me to stop. I couldn't keep ignoring this facade and let the carefree joy of the moment act as my shield. "I am not what you think," I finally blurted out, the words tumbling out in a rush, unformed yet powerful. Max looked up, surprise evident in his eyes. I mean, I didn't start off as a maid. I didn't, but whatever courage I had crumbled when he stood and moved closer, that familiar intensity in his gaze revealing a vulnerability I had never seen. His expression shifted to concern as reality settled into the silence between us. "What do you mean?" he asked softly, genuinely inquisitive, pushing his own happiness aside momentarily. "It's all a misunderstanding," I stammered, suddenly aware of how wrapped up in my own excuses I had become. The puppy nuzzled against my leg, as if sensing my turmoil, but the moment felt impossible to control. I hesitated once more, feeling the enormity of my truth biting into me. Before I could respond, the doorbell chimed, cutting through my courage like a knife. "Who could that be?" Max asked, his brow furrowing again, a hint of worry swirling in his posture as he turned away. My nerves tightened. I couldn't bear for him to see that I was crumbling inside. "You'll get it," I replied before scuttling away, regrets already wrapping themselves tightly around my heart. I could hardly breathe, the door looming before me like a dark abyss. I feared who might stand on the other side. Could it be someone from my past? Someone who could expose me? With a shaky hand, I opened the door, and my breath hitched in my throat. The woman standing there bore an expression that made my skin crawl, elegant and poised, but with an unmistakable glint of malice in her eyes. "Is Max home?" she said, her voice dripping with sugar-coated disdain. "I need to speak with him. It's about the property." Without meaning to, I felt the blood drain from my face. Something in her presence ignited a warning bell in my heart. The last thing I needed was another complication thrust upon me. My gaze flickered back into the living room, where Max and Mia were now wrapped up in the excitement of the puppy, oblivious to the impending storm. I could sense that this woman, whoever she was, would crack my world wide open before I even got the chance to breathe a word. And as I stood frozen, the weight of the truth pressing heavy on my shoulders, I realized with dread that my carefully constructed lies were finally at risk of unraveling. The woman at the door shifted her weight, the light catching her perfectly manicured nail sent unsettling juxtaposition to the raw edginess of my heart. I felt rooted in place, enveloped by the chill emanating from her. Each second stretched like a taut wire, and instinctively my hand fluttered to my side, longing for reassurance from the comforting range of emotions encapsulated by the puppy. "Could you let him know I'm here?" she pressed, arching an eyebrow as if it were a privilege for her to even be here, standing before me. Those were the eyes of someone accustomed to having their way, someone who thrived on power. I swallowed hard, trying to muster the strength to withstand the journey my truth demanded of me. But as I opened my mouth, hoping to stutter some vague excuse or perhaps to reveal just enough to drive her away, Max's laughter echoed from the living room bright and pure. It broke through the potential confrontation like a golden ray cutting through dark clouds. "Who's at the door?" he called out, oblivious to the dread that had blighted me. "It's someone asking for you," I replied, my voice wavering slightly. The woman raised a brow again, a smirk dancing around the corners of her mouth. "Max will want to know what I have to say," she said, her tone dripping with conviction. Without thinking, I stepped back, allowing her to stride into our sanctuary, as if she owned the place. The sight of her self-assuredness caused my heart to race. Glancing back at Max, I saw that his playful moment with the puppy had stopped. A quiet tension seeped into that forgotten space of our happiness. I wanted to scream for him to run, to escape the room, to not let this stranger in. "Max," I tried to warn him, but my voice got stuck in the throat of hesitation. The moment felt too grand, too monumental. Instead, I waited, bound by a silent fear of what could unfold. "Who's this?" he asked, tilting his head slightly, the curiosity in his eyes shifting to concern when he registered my stiff posture. The woman flashed a smile, sharp yet artificial. "Just a friend from the agency, here to discuss some business matters," she responded as if the word friend were woven from deceit. My heart sank. The agency. The one link to my past, the one that would expose every layer I had so desperately tried to bury beneath the facade of maid and forgotten burdens. The knowledge churned in my stomach, casting shadows over every joyful memory I had tried to cling to in that moment. "What kind of business?" Max pressed, perhaps sensing the tension but unable to fully grasp it. "I assure you, it's nothing you need to concern yourself with," she said smoothly, flicking her fingers dismissively. "Maybe you should take a little walk, enjoy some fresh air with your new friend instead." Max shifted his gaze to me, confusion etched on his brow. "Should I?" "Just go, please," I breathed, panic spilling over the hesitance of my words. I didn't want him to get caught up in the whirlpool of my mistakes. The woman's presence felt like a noose tightening around my truth, and I wished for nothing more than to shield him from it. He paused, his instincts urging him to weigh the tension around me, but he ultimately relented, rising slowly. "Okay, let's take the puppy out for a bit." As if sensing the undercurrents of the moment, the puppy eagerly wriggled in Max's arms, infusing the air with a tantalizing hint of joy even amidst the gloom. Max stole one last glance backward, an unspoken question lingering unasked between us, before he turned to head outside. My heart ached as the door clicked shut behind him, the silence left in its wake swirling around me. The woman turned back to me with a predatory grin. "We need to have a little chat," she said, her voice low, her gaze penetrating like an icy dagger aimed at my secrets. I suddenly felt exposed, vulnerable. "What do you want?" I managed, schooling my voice to remain steady, but I could taste the fear rising like bile in my throat. "Am not here for pleasantries," she replied, taking a step closer, invading my space unapologetically. "I know who you are, and I know who you were." My breath caught in my lungs, a million defenses spinning through my mind. I couldn't let her see the cracks in my composure, couldn't allow her to push me to the limit. "What do you want from me?" I repeated, desperation coloring my tone. "You have something that belongs to me," she said, her voice dripping with poison. "And I won't let you take it from me unscathed." Outside, I could hear Max's laughter mingling with the joyful barks of the puppy, so blissfully unaware of the shadows creeping in, shadows I had inadvertently invited over. With strappy words designed to undefine me, the woman leaned in closer, whispering my past into the air. "You know, Max's family has a lot riding on this property. You have until the end of the week to decide where your loyalties lie." And just like that, a knife plunged into my heart. Choices looming just beyond my grasp, as the days dwindled like grains of sand slipping through my fingers. I stood in that moment, trapped between a life of truth I longed to grasp, and the love I feared to lose, both precariously balanced on a knife's edge. As the shadows of my past breathed life into my present, a sudden surge of urgency filled the space where my hope used to dwell. Would I be brave enough to expose everything I had forcibly intertwined with my heart, or would this be the end of everything beautiful I had built with Max? And as the door swung wildly open behind me, bringing the muffled sounds of laughter and life rushing back in, I realized the weight of my decision awaited me like a slowly approaching storm. The door creaked on its hinges as it swung open, and suddenly the warmth of the sun flooded the room, mingling with the flurry of laughter from outside. But the light carried no comfort for me, it only accentuated the darkness gathering within. "Who are you talking to?" Max's voice held an innocent curiosity, the pure lilt of his laughter echoing like a haunting melody. I felt frozen, caught between the reality of this woman and the life I had fought so hard to create for him. I couldn't let the shadows wrap around us. My heart raced as I turned to face the gentle warmth of his smile juxtaposed against the cold menace of the woman before me. Point two was just my voice faltered, each word more fragile than the last. I searched for anything that would cloak the bitterness of the moment in sweetness. "Nothing for you to worry about," the woman interjected smoothly, threateningly casual. Her eyes flicked to Max, and I felt a primal urge to protect him from her predatory gaze. "Then can we go back outside?" he asked, the puppy squirming eagerly in his grip, the innocent embodiment of joy and naivety. It made my heart ache. How could my decisions be past threaten the only light in my life? "Max, maybe you should come inside for a second." My attempt to divert him felt like a desperate plea, sparking a flicker of alarm in his eyes. "Why? Is something wrong?" The shadow of concern darkened his features, and it wounded me anew to see his bright spirit clouded. "Everything's fine," I insisted, though my heart was the most unconvincing witness. Knowing I had to maintain the illusion of a stable life, and yet I felt the walls closing in, the weight of the past anchoring me to this moment. "Just a misunderstanding with her. That." A chuckle escaped the woman, rich with malice. "Misunderstandings can often conceal truths, can't they, dear?" she taunted, glancing back at Max with insincerity floating behind her charming facade. "I would hate to ruin such a lovely day." Max shifted his stance, still holding the puppy. I could see his heart wrestle with the bond we had crafted. "Just tell me who she is," he pressed, his youthful spirit now threaded with a tinge of worry. "Just someone from my past," I blurted, tinged with panic. The truth curled protectively around those words, hoping to shield him. But I cursed under breath for my inability to offer him clarity. Is she a friend? He asked, his eyes narrowing slightly, the innocence fading. More like an acquaintance, I replied, my disposition shifting as I sensed the woman's impatience. Please, just let me handle this. No. The word fell from Max's lips with newfound strength. I won't just leave you here. The tension coiled tighter, painful and electric. The woman crossed her arms, reassessing Max with newfound interest. His sense of loyalty is admirable, she commented, her tone like silk cloaked over steel. But it can also lead him to dire outcomes. Leave him out of this. My voice erupted, filled with a mixture of anger and fear, and I stepped forward instinctively, adopting a protective stance. Why would I? She mused, the smile still poised upon her lips. If I were you, I would be more concerned about what I might take from you if you don't comply. The words hung in the air, rippling the atmosphere around us. My mind raced with desperation. All I had worked for, everything I had nurtured alongside Max was threatened, and the realization felt suffocating. Do I need to do something? Max asked, shifting nervously. His innocence was now laced with concern, and I could see it was starting to shake his confidence in the world we had built. My heart turned in anguish at the idea of burdening him any further. No. The word escaped my lips, a protective instinct roaring within. I was terrified, lost in my tumultuous feelings, uncertain of how to contain the storm that had gathered. You don't need to get dragged into this. Just go wait outside. Why is this happening? His voice cracked, the confusion clawing at his spirit. The woman faced him fully now, a twisted grin twisting her lips. It's a simple choice, really. She has something that I want. She could save you both a lot of trouble. Max, don't listen to her. I shouted, the wall of panic closing in around me, ready to burst. But Max shook his head, eyes wide with innocence yet filled with a growing understanding. Then I need to know the truth. The courage in his demand was undeniable, and yet it twisted like a dagger in my heart, unearthing scars I wasn't ready to reveal. I looked to that stranger, first the grip of my past coming alive before me, but then back at Max, the purity of his heart clashing with the secrets I had tried to shield him from. And then the woman leaned close, her voice a hiss of deceit that pricked at the tender layers of my resolve. Tell him, or I will. The weight of the impending choice bore down upon me, and the world around seemed to blur, the joy and laughter of life on the other side of the door fading into a distant echo. The looming shadows pressed, as I felt the very fabric of my truth unraveling. And as I stood there, my mind racing with untold fears and unspoken words, I realized I was no longer the one who held the pieces of our fate. The storm was here, and I was standing in its eye waiting for the tempest to break. The door slipped shut behind Max as he reluctantly stepped away, leaving a chasm of silence between us. The woman before me seemed to swell with the darkness of the room now that he was gone, casting her shadow longer than it had been, and I felt very much the prey. Now, she said, her tone dripping with condescension, isn't this much better? Just the two of us. I swallowed hard, my throat tight with an unresolved mixture of anger and fear. What do you want? Her smile widened, sickly sweet. Oh dear! Isn't it clear? I want what you've kept from me for so long. The glint in her eyes spoke of histories entwined with secrets, but her next words chilled me more than any revelation. I want to see you unravel. I want to take your precious little boy and make you watch helplessly as he realizes who you truly are. I felt the breath rush from my lungs, a cold wave of dread washing over me. You wouldn't dare. The words were a desperate plea, my heart hammering against my ribcage, a caged animal sensing the approaching predator. Wouldn't I? She challenged, tilting her head like a curious cat toying with its prey. You see, it's not just about control. It's about awakening the truth. And your little facade is full of lies, casting shadows on a once bright life. Her words twisted the knife deeper, but I fought to keep my composure, summoning the strength I needed to protect Max. He loves me. He trusts me. You won't get near him. Oh, my dear, she laughed, flinging her head back in glee. That's exactly where you're wrong. Your love is your Achilles heel. I'm merely the collector of truths that you've denied him. It was too much. The emotional weight suffocated me, plunging me into a spiral of self-doubt. Memories tumbled through my mind, the struggles, the sacrifices, the many sleepless nights where I fought against the demons of my past, all for Max's sake. I had built a sanctuary amid my sins, and now she stood ready to tear it down. Why are you doing this? I whispered, memories of our shared history clawing out from the depths. What did I ever do to you? Her eyes glittered with a venomous delight. Oh, darling, it's not personal. It's simply business. You took everything from me. Now it's time for me to collect on the debts. Just as despair crested, a sliver of hope pierced through the storm. Max, had he gone to fetch help? I imagined his small frame bursting through that door at any moment, ready to defend me as he once had. But as I glanced toward it, I realized he had likely run outside, clutching the trembling puppy, bewildered by the chaos that had unfolded. Max! The name escaped my lips as a plea, a prayer that he stayed safe and did not feel the brunt of this encounter. A sharp edge of guilt slid through me as I thought of the burden I had unintentionally placed on him, the heaviness that came from hiding the truth of who I really was. Don't worry, he'll find out soon enough, she said, reveling in my pain. And when he does, well, it will be the ultimate betrayal, won't it? My hands clenched into fists at my sides, the urge to lunge forward threatening to overwhelm me. But as if sensing my distress, I caught sight of the puppy nestled against Max's feet through the window, blissfully unaware of the darkness encroaching. That tiny creature, filled with love and trust, was a reminder of what I was fighting to protect. Enough! I shouted, summoning an echo of confidence I hadn't felt in ages. Glowering, I leaned closer to her, the fire of determination propelling me forward. You think you can scare me into submission? I refuse to let you haunt my life any longer. I will not let you hurt him. Surprise flickered across her features, and for a split second, the mask slipped just enough for me to see the vulnerability beneath it. But quickly, she regained her composure, a cloud of disdain forming in her eyes. Oh, we'll see about that. You're running out of time, dear. The truth is a ruthless force. Before she could finish, a sudden commotion erupted outside. My heart raced as I saw shadows flitting past the window, a group of figures converging onto the yard. My pulse quickened further, a new wave of hope mixed with trepidation pulsating through me. Had Max sought out friends? Did he dare to call for help despite the danger? But in that moment of distraction, the woman smirked with triumph. Looks like reinforcements have arrived. But remember, their protection will only be temporary. As she backed away, her laughter echoing through the room, like an ominous clock ticking down toward the inevitable confrontation, I felt panic and dread pull at my heartstrings. My eyes darted to the door, but the shadows of doubt crowded and the echoes of my past loomed large, threatening to untangle everything I had built for Max. But just as I weighed my options, a startling realization struck me with chilling clarity. The unexpected truths she was wielding against me were not merely weapons, they were chains, binding me to my past. And with every tick of the clock, the battle for my family's future loomed closer, the lines drawn between enemies blurring under the weight of unexamined loyalty and buried scars. As I wrestled with my thoughts, the world outside gained a life of its own, the clash of muffled voices spilling through the door like a tempest finally unleashed. I was left teetering on the brink of a reckoning, ready to face whatever storm had been summoned, unwilling to surrender to the gathering shadows just yet. The distant shouts outside felt like an unsteady anchor in the chaos swirling within me. I tried to focus on gathering strength, but the tension in the room tightened like a noose. Her taunting laughter echoed in my ears, a chilling reminder that the battle had only begun. In those moments before the door burst open, I could hardly breathe. I was caught between the palpable fear of what I might lose and the flicker of hope ignited at the idea of friends rallying for support. Friends who could help me protect Max from the truths lurking in the shadows, threatening to rip apart the fragile peace we had built. The door swung open to reveal Jessa, Max's best friend, followed closely by her older brother, Shane. Their fierce determination was evident in their expressions as they rushed in, and for a heartbeat, the chaos quieted. "Where's Max?" Jessa's voice was tinged with worry, her gaze darting between us. I wanted to respond, to shout out that he was safe, that I believed he was with the pup, but my heart ached as the absence of my son's small frame filled the room like an ominous fog. "Hiding is for the feeble," the woman sneered, casually leaning against the wall, her confidence a sharp contrast to my crumbling resolve. "You should have stayed home. This is no place for children." "Shut up." Shane's voice snapped, stepping protectively toward us. His protective stance steeled my resolve. Perhaps there was strength in numbers. Maybe I wasn't as isolated as I'd feared. "What do you want?" Her eyes glinted as she assessed her audience. "To show her what lies beneath the surface. To expose the truth about this charming little facade she's been painting. Go to hell," Jessa barked, stepping forward defiantly. I could see her glimpse my anguish, her breath quickening as she realized the depth of the threat I was facing. But in that moment, I glimpsed something unexpected in the woman's eyes, a flicker of uncertainty. Was it possible that even she felt the weight of the truth she sought to expose? Perhaps, just beneath the veneer of her malignance, there lay a vulnerability I could exploit. Yet before I could seize that opportunity, the moment fizzled out. The woman straightened, her twisted smile returning. "You think you can protect her? That you can shield her from what she truly is? I've seen beyond her charade, and soon everyone will dot." I felt the heat of shame creep into my cheeks. "What are you talking about?" I demanded, clenching my fists. Each passing moment seemed to peel away my layers of resolve, leaving me naked in my vulnerability. "Every mother has her secrets, dear," she replied, the sweetness dripping from her voice now tinged with something darker. "No one is perfect. But wouldn't it be a lovely twist for Max to discover that his mother isn't really the hero he believes her to be?" And in that moment, the weight of her words wrapped around my chest like a cold shroud. Memories of my choices clawed back into focus, times when I had chosen survival over connection, darkness over light, guilt over love. I felt the hollow ache of my past spill into the present, feeding the doubts I had struggled to bury. "No matter what you've done," Jessa asserted, "it doesn't change who you are now." Her words settled over me like a comforting blanket, igniting a small spark of hope. Perhaps I wasn't as far gone as I feared. But the itch of anxiety lingered. What if the woman succeeded in unveiling the shadows that hovered behind my smile? Brave words, but will they stand when the truth unfolds? The woman hissed, her voice slicing through the moment. "Your son deserves to know who he really loves." Suddenly, I heard Max's voice calling from the front yard, panic lacing every syllable. "Mom! Jessa! Where are you?" I bolted for the door before I could second-guess myself. Jessa and Shane followed swiftly, urgency lending their legs speed. With each hurried step, I could feel my heart racing, a frantic percussion underscoring my thoughts. "Max!" I shouted, urgency laced through my voice as I pushed through the screen door, my feet hitting the cool grass. The chaos in my chest swelled as I caught sight of my son huddled beneath a tree, the puppy nestled under his arm. Relief flooded me momentarily until I captured the sight of the stranger approaching him, an eerie silhouette that made my stomach drop. No! I screamed, propelling my body forward as adrenaline surged through my veins. But in that fleeting moment, as I lunged closer, a profound silence fell, wrapping around the scene like a tightening noose. The dark figure's face became clearer, and I froze as icy shock flooded through me. It was someone I never imagined I'd see again, someone I had tried to forget, a piece of my life I thought was buried. The woman's twisted grin echoed in my mind, her aura of victory palpable once more as realization dawned. She had orchestrated everything. Just when I thought I was standing strong with my friends by my side, I was thrown into a deeper, darker abyss than I ever could have prepared for. "Mom?" Max's innocent voice cracked through the uncertainty, pulling me back from the edge. The trust in his eyes magnified the stakes of what was about to unfold. I stood there, unmoored by the storm that was just beginning to brew, a storm that promised to unearth the most painful truths, challenging every piece of the carefully constructed world I had built for Max. And as the figure approached, the air thick with unanswered questions, I knew one harrowing truth. This fight was far from over, and the most difficult hurdles lay ahead. The figure stood before Max, the late afternoon sun casting a long, haunting shadow over the yard. It felt like an eternity, my heart racing as memories flooded back fragments of a life I had tried so hard to erase. The last time I had seen him, it had been a farewell mingled with betrayal, a painful goodbye wrapped in unfulfilled love and shattered dreams. "Mom?" Max's voice cut through the tension, his small face alight with a mix of confusion and concern. He clung to the puppy, as if it was some enchanted talisman that could shield him from the storm gathering around us. "Stay behind me," I commanded, trying to mask my fear, though my voice trembled. I could feel Jessa and Shane closing in, an unspoken shield forming around us. Yet, no amount of their support could guard me against the weight of my past. "What are you doing here?" I snapped, my eyes narrowing on the figure. He met my gaze, and despite the years, I could still see the remnants of the boy I once loved hidden behind the shadows of a man who had changed in ways I could hardly comprehend. "I came to see you," he said, his voice steady but soft, as though he were reaching for something fragile. My breath caught in my throat. "Why now? After all this time?" He hesitated, the moment stretching between us like a taut wire. "Because I need to explain. There was so much you didn't know. Enough." I spat, anger mingling with anxiety, unsure if I was more furious with him or myself for even acknowledging his presence. "You lost that right when you walked away, Mom," Max whispered, drawing closer to me, the innocence of his confusion deepening the anguish in my heart. Is he someone bad?" I turned back to the man who had haunted my dreams, wondering how a single face could elicit both longing and loathing. "You don't belong here anymore," I finally said, my voice wavering but resolute. "You don't get to come back and disrupt our lives, especially now. Not while she's still lurking." "Who?" he asked, and it felt like the very air around us crackled with the intensity of unspoken truths lingering just below the surface. "The woman," Shane offered, his brow furrowed. "She's dangerous." My heart ached at the gravity of Shane's words. I hadn't even considered that the presence of the man I loved could complicate things further. All I wanted was to protect Max from my past, from the shadows threatening to close in around us. "What are you doing here?" "I didn't know she was back," he responded, a shadow dancing across his face. "I thought she was gone for good. I thought you were safe." His words struck a chord deep within me, resonating with memories of sleepless nights devoted to both fear and hope. There had been whispers of her return, the kind that sent shivers down my spine. But to hear him speak so openly of concern, of care, ignited a flicker within me I had kept hidden. "Safe?" I echoed, breath quickening. Did he even understand the danger we were in? Did he think I had been sitting idly by, lulled into complacency by the illusion of peace? "Max, let's go inside," Jessa urged, her protective instincts kicking in, sensing the tension at a fever pitch. No! I blurted out, the desperation in my voice louder than I intended. I won't let you take him away from me now. Not again. Take him where? The man's face twisted in confusion, genuinely perplexed. Am not here to take him. I just want enough. I pried my gaze away from him, and hardened my resolve. My heart was torn between wanting to understand his side of the story, and holding on to the instinct to protect. To re-engage with him wouldn't only threaten the tenuous balance I had achieved, it could ruin everything I had fought for. But before I could say more, a sharp laugh echoed from behind us. The sinister woman stepped forward, leaning against the doorway. Ah, it appears the family reunion is hitting a few snags. But you are all fools to think you can prevent the inevitable. In an instant, I was thrust back to the terrifying present. A sickening sense of dread washed over me as realization sank in. She had been orchestrating this moment for far longer than I had anticipated. Max, go inside with Jessa and Shane, I instructed, pushing my child toward the safety of my friends. Now, Mom, please, he protested, but the urgency of his safety drowned out his protests. Now, I shouted, voice rising as I turned back to face the woman, determination igniting within me. But just as Jessa and Shane ushered Max back toward the house, an unexpected flicker of kindness broke through my fraying nerves. The man reached for the puppy, who wobbled toward him like a tiny beacon of hope. He knelt, offering it a gentler touch than I had known. In that fleeting moment, between the chaos and the tension, I glimpsed the boy I once cherished, the connection crashing against the walls I had built around my heart. Listen to me, he whispered, his eyes softening as he rose to meet my gaze again. This isn't over. You don't have to confront this alone. But as his words tumbled into the air, the woman's voice sliced through the fragile moment like a knife. Oh, but you will, because the truth has a way of coming to light. Let me show you what real pain looks like. Time seemed to freeze, my breath hitching. And in that suspended moment, I realized that our fates were more intertwined than I had thought possible. This fight was only just beginning, and the ghosts of my past were about to resurface in a way that could unravel every piece of happiness I had fought so hard to build. Mom! Max's voice rang out anew, raw with fear, dragging my focus straight to him as he reappeared in the doorway, eyes wide and imploring. And with that, I knew the battle ahead would be unlike anything I had ever faced, pulling not just on my heart but also on the very essence of my being. The days that followed that fateful encounter felt like a tightrope walk, each one precarious, and filled with a looming sense of dread. I kept Max close, a hawk-like vigilance guarding against the shadows that danced at the outskirts of our lives. Jessa and Shane were great, rallying around us in this fragile time, but even their presence couldn't shield me from the echo of those haunting memories. I found myself replaying the scene over and over, the man from my past, kneeling there before that puppy like he could rewrite the narrative of our lives, if only I allowed it. Each night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was making the right choice. Was I protecting Max, or was I just running away from a part of myself I had tried to bury? One evening, as the sun dipped low, casting a golden glow through the windows, Max dragged me outside for a game of catch with his puppy. The puppy, full of unbridled joy, leaped and bounded, blissfully unaware of the weight gripping my heart. Mom, watch! Max giggled, and as I clapped for him, a sweet mix of joy and sorrow suffused my soul. It was a fleeting moment, just a kid enjoying a simple game, but it struck a deeper chord within me. For all the turmoil that surrounded us, he deserved these moments of pure happiness. Go long, he shouted, his laughter a soothing balm against the chaos. As he dashed away, my mind was spiraling back to that man's plea. I couldn't forget his eyes filled with concern, with something deeper, a flicker of connection that begged for exploration. I shoved those thoughts away, unwilling to entertain the possibility of a reunion I had once yearned for but now feared. Just then, an unexpected knock interrupted my reverie. The sound was firm and deliberate, cutting through the tranquility like a sharp blade. My heart leapt. Was it him? Or worse, was it her? Jessa appeared at my side, her brow furrowing. "You okay?" she asked, instinctively leaning closer. I nodded, though my heart raced. I stepped toward the door cautiously, peering through the peephole, my breath hitching when I spotted him standing outside. My body betrayed me, unwilling to allow the past to dissolve into mere memory. All my instincts screamed at me to turn away, to protect what I held dear. But I found myself opening the door, the creaking hinges sounding like the groan of my conscience. "Look, I know you probably don't want to see me," he began, hands shoved deep into his pockets, his voice quieter than I remembered. The sincerity in his gaze was genuine, but it stirred up emotions best left untouched. "What do you want?" My tone was sharp, laced with the anger that had kept me strong through the years. I wanted to check on Max." He shifted from one foot to the other, the guilt etched into his features. "I can see he's happy, and that's good. Why now? After everything that's happened?" I couldn't restrain the bitterness, the depth of the past bubbling to the surface. He opened his mouth, but then closed it, searching for the right words. "I still care about you both, more than you know." The last thing I wanted was to resurface with all this drama. That made my chest tighten. How could he act as if he had any rights in our lives? "Mom, can I come out?" Max's voice floated from behind me, the innocence of her child piercing through the tension. I had been so absorbed in the moment that I had almost forgotten he was there, needing me to shield him yet again from the ghosts of my past. "Just a sec, sweetheart," I called back, my heart racing. "Please," he urged, and the ache in his voice twisted like a knife. I was torn. Max should have clarity in his life, a stability I could give him. But my past had a way of creeping in, threatening to shatter our fragile safety. "I think it's best you go," I murmured, turning back to face him. "We're just trying to find our peace, and you being here, it complicates everything." He took a step closer, the distance between us narrowing down to mere inches. "I realized something," he said, voice low, barely above a whisper. "That woman is dangerous. And she isn't just after you. My stomach churned, a frigid dread settling deep within me. "What do you mean?" "I can't explain it all now," he replied, and there was an urgency in him that struck a chord in my heart. "But there are secrets she knows about you, about Max, things that could put you both in jeopardy." Every hair on my body stood on end, a cold realization gnawing at my core. I thought I was protecting Max by keeping him isolated from the past, but what if that isolation was leading me to make the gravest mistake of all? Before I could delve deeper, Max pushed through the door. "Mom, is it him? Can I say hi?" My heart thudded in my chest, panic sprawled out like a wild vine within me. "Max," but it was too late. The tension crackled as our worlds collided. The moment hung heavy, his face lighting up with the most naive delight, while mine felt like it was crumbling. "Hey, buddy," he greeted, squatting down to meet Max's bright eyes. "I've heard a lot about you. Really? All good things, I hope." Max beamed, a smile that could light up the darkest corners of the universe. As the two of them talked, I felt the ground shift beneath me. Engaging in this dialogue, however innocent, opened a door I had thought dead and buried. "Mommy?" Max's small voice cut through as I felt the walls around me beginning to waver. "Can he stay for a minute?" My heart pounded, chaos swirling as I weighed the cost of inviting the past back into our La Visa past filled with hurt, but also with love. Could it really be weighed against protecting not just the fragile equilibrium of our lives, but the very essence of my heart? And just as I was about to respond, the wind outside whipped cruelly, carrying with it a low, haunting laughter. The woman's laughter. It echoed through the evening air, sending chills racing down my spine as I realized she was watching. "Max!" I shouted as a shudder of recognition gripped me. "Get inside, now!" The decision had been made. I had to protect him, even if that meant locking the door on a chance one that could redefine everything I thought I knew about love, sacrifice, and the lengths a mother would go for her child. But as Max turned away from the man, I caught a fleeting glimpse of despair etched across his face, the hurt of being shut out once more tangible as the night descended around us. And while I pushed forward my desire for safety, the risk of losing hope lingered in that moment like a shadow, threatening to upend everything before me. Yes, the battle was only just beginning, and with each decision, secrets were set to unravel me. Choice would echo far beyond what I could comprehend. The stars twinkled frostily above us, indifferent to my turmoil, as the door creaked shut behind Max. My heart was a quaking mass within my chest, the weight of choices pressing heavily on my shoulders as I turned to face the man I had once loved. "Why now?" I demanded, voice seething with the anxiety and anger that had built over the years. "You left. You didn't even look back. And now you expect to waltz back in like nothing has changed?" He opened his mouth, but words failed him. Instead, he fashioned the silence into a desperate plea. "I get it. I do. But it's not as simple as that." A tremor ran through his voice that only made me more furious. "You don't know what you're asking me to just forget. Do you understand the stakes here? The woman is dangerous, and she's coming for you. She's coming for both of you." As if summoned into the thick air of confrontation, the laughter from outside echoed again, twisted and gloating, twisting the knife right back into my chest. I felt a shiver race down my spine, wrapping itself tight around my throat. "You don't know how deep her intentions run, neither do you." I shot back, my frustration boiling over, the vehemence in my words bared for him to feel. "You think this is just about you and the past? That I can simply welcome you back into our lives without a single thought? I've built something here. For my son. Something built on lies." His voice ground against my tempers, raw and unyielding. "You think she'll stand idly by, letting you have your little fairy tale? Enough!" I shouted, as a swell of despair rolled through me. I couldn't face the truth lurking behind his words. "What do you want from me? What are you suggesting?" "Help," he said, his eyes searching mine, exposing the vulnerable layers I always detested unearthing. "Let me help you. Let me protect Max and you from her. Together? I laughed bitterly, bitterness scoffing at every syllable. Together is a luxury I can't afford anymore. I've learned the hard way that love clouds everything. It can blind you." "Okay, I understand," he interjected, stepping closer, desperation lacing every word that tumbled from his lips. "But don't you see? You are not alone. There are people here who truly want to help you. I never meant to walk away, but she's a bigger threat than you realize." I know the depth of her darkness. The sincerity in his voice flickered like a dying ember, but a part of me resisted. It was easier to be angry than to confront sleepwalking memories of affection and trust. "You think you understand me?" My voice broke. I could barely choke back the emotion. "You disappeared when I needed you most. And now, here you are, trying to play the hero? It doesn't work that way, but I'm here now." His voice rose with urgency. "She won't just let you go, not when there are pieces of the past she has yet to claim. She knows things about your history that could fracture everything." As he spoke, Max attempted to sneak around behind me, watching our escalating conflict with wide, curious eyes. The innocence in his face propelled me forward, reminding me of what was truly at stake. "Get inside, please." My own voice turned desperate then, willing Max to step back into safety, and then it hit me. I could no longer shield him from my past. The truth was inching ever closer, and no amount of isolation could protect him from the shadows. I saw the incredulity flash across his face, the realization that I might choose the man before meth man who had once left to act in such an integral part of our lives. "Mom, why are you being mean to him?" Max's small voice broke through, innocent in its straightforwardness. He looked scared. All it took was those simple words from my son to melt the wall I had erected around us. I turned to see the cracks beginning to appear in my own illusions. I had hoped Max would never have to witness the ghosts I carried, but here they were, alive and potent, rising above the surface. Max, my voice faltered. I felt exposed the truth bared before my son, who shouldered none of my burdens. The man reached out toward Max, a small gesture that flickered with warmth. The puppy nestled beside him, drawing its own gentle connection into the room. "I'm not here to hurt either of you," he said, sincerity brimming within his gaze. "I'm here to try and help." "Help?" I echoed, my voice strained with a tangle of emotions. "You've done nothing but add another layer of fear to my life. Just listen," he pleaded, his voice dropping to a whisper, coaxing the words between us. "If you let me in, if you give us a chance to face this together, maybe we can finally free ourselves from the lies. Maybe we can start anew." And there it was, the edge of hope mixing with my stormy emotions. Could I allow myself that? This twisted path was so marred with loss and betrayal. But a flickering light illuminated something I hadn't dared chase before. But it came with a caveat. It meant facing the darkness as well. I finally turned to my son, gripping his tiny hands tightly. "Max," I murmured, wishing my heart could shield him from all this. "What do you think?" His eyes darted between the man's hopeful sincerity and my fractured soul. For a moment, I held on to the thin thread of trust, unsure of where it would lead, but longing for clarity amid the chaos. He finally said, "I think I just want to play." The vulnerability in his innocent desire shattered me as laughter from the past echoed in the distance. "I want that too, sweetheart." I fought to swallow my own pain. The fear of loss rose sharply, while the pulse of hope vibrated just below the surface. As I forged a decision, hands trembling between past and future, I knew that whatever lay ahead, we could confront it together. Suddenly, through the tension, the laughter outside erupted again, beaming through the shadows that loomed over us. And the sincerity in the man's gaze told me that he might just have the capacity to light the path forward. "We face her together," I said resolutely, the words spilling forth from my heart. "No more running away. If we don't unite against her, we risk everything." That profound declaration hung in the air, creating a shiver of electricity between us. The pact forged in that moment felt weighty and momentous. And with that, I felt the first real threads of fear fading in the fall of night, as hope began to weave its way back into existence. But I still had one final choice to make. "Let's give Max some cake," I directed suddenly, the energy rushing back into my body. "If we're facing the storm ahead, we'll need by strength bolstered by sweetness. Plus, we have a puppy to spoil." Laughter erupted as Max perked up, and alongside him, the warmth began to bloom again, even in the face of uncertainty. Together, the three of us posed a challenge to whatever darkness threatened. And as we stepped into the faint glow of hope, I knew an unbreakable thread had woven us together, promising to rise against the shadows and embrace the laughter waiting on the other side. As the chaos faded momentarily, I whispered the words that had been trapped deep within me for so long: "I forgive you." In that moment, I discovered my own heart healing twisted within the embrace of love, locking out the shadows. And together, we would tread forth into the unknown, hand in hand, ready to chase whatever the future held. For the greatest battles were always fought with love, never fear, and together, we would reclaim our lives. The worries would always churn in the deep, but we were ready, and that was a start. "Let's go," I said softly, taking the first step into the light as Max threw his arms around my waist, filling the space with laughter, reminding me that despite the dark shadows lurking, love has the power to carve pathways into every heart. And so we stepped into the unknown, together, ready to face whatever came our way. And that was just the beginning.